I think I've lost a little bit of faith in our democracy's ability to contain somebody as vile as Boris Johnson. My instinct is to talk about Boris Johnson. But what can you do? This is what I was alluding to with Henry. It's like Trump, isn't it? I resisted for so long, and you were so cross with me. I resisted for so long the parallels, because I'm British, and I didn't want to think that we'd fallen as far or nearly as far as America had fallen when they put Trump in the White House. In some ways, we've fallen further, because the media still cheerleading for Boris Johnson are not the sort of freakish outriders of Fox News. They're people right up to the upper echelons of, and it's not confined to the Murdoch media. Murdoch always very cleverly has vulgar journalism, which essentially just stokes what we now call culture wars, but historically it would be racism and homophobia and all of those things neatly set up for the consumption of readers by Murdoch newspapers or broadcasters. But he then has the respectable stuff as well. He has the Times as well as the Sun, you see. He has a similar setup in America. But in this country, it's not confined to Murdoch's rabble-rousing media. You've got the Daily Mail doing it. You've got the Daily Telegraph doing it. You've got the Daily Express doing it, even more weirdly, given that it's owned by the group that publishes the Mirror newspapers. So I sometimes think it's worse here, this absolute failure to acknowledge the sheer scale of the damage done to democracy by Boris Johnson. But what is quite interesting, potentially, is that we've already seen all the evidence. We've seen it, and again, I think that his Steve Bannon-esque ability to flood the zone with shocking amounts of ordure, it bends all our heads. It turns all of us sometimes. We've already seen all the evidence. So Boris Johnson's defence, and that's why I'm probably going to ask you in a minute whether you think he can get away with this one. That's where it turns into Trump, you see. Can he possibly get away with this one? And you think, well, he's got away with all manner of abuses in the past. I don't even know what's worse. The illegal prorogation of Parliament, sending Jacob to Balmoral to lie to the Queen, the attempt to bring Owen Paterson back into the fold, sending Dominic Cummings out to lie to you about Barnard Carr. I don't even know where to begin. But I have to decide soon. The clock is ticking on my book deadline. You think, can he get away with this one? So I think let's just take a step back together. Ready? Let's take a step back together and imagine what his defence has to be, not what it is or what it will be, because Henry's talked us through some of the contents of that of this so-called dossier. I do love the bit about all the typos and the errors, because that is so on brand, isn't it, that he's cobbled it together on the back of an envelope and he's relying upon his charm and his ability to think on his feet to get it through. I just sort of thinking of what it has to be. This has come in from the committee. Mr. Johnson's written, this is what I meant about, I think we've seen all the evidence. Here it is. Here's the proof. 40 minutes ago, Mikey Smith at the Mirror tweeted, Mr. Johnson's written submission contains no new documentary evidence. No new documentary evidence. And although he can rely on the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph and possibly a couple of other outlets to inflate his absolute balderdash, to use a word he'd enjoy, his undiluted balderdash, the inverted pyramid of piffle that somehow Sue Gray's possible employment by the Labour Party has any bearing or relevance on a Privileges Committee investigation, a Privileges Committee inquiry at all. That is a barefaced lie. Anybody who mentions Sue Gray in the context of the Privileges Committee is either lying to you or desperately trying to mislead you. That's a given, and that's why it was relevant for Henry to point out her name pops up quite a lot in the opening to it. Now we know that it contains absolutely no documentary evidence at all. So by all that is holy, he should really be toast. And this is what his defence will look like. His defence will look like, and this is what I'm going to ask you, whether or not you think it's plausible. And I do genuinely want you to try to answer the question without your scarf on. You know, whatever your feelings about Boris Johnson, that's no point doing that now because it's gone full cult, hasn't it? You can't. There's no point speaking to people that think Boris Johnson is a good egg anymore because what evidence are you going to need? We've reached the shooting someone on Fifth Avenue stage of the Boris Johnson story. I think we did probably quite a long time ago, but we'll see. We'll press on. You have seen photographs of him at parties, right? Whether they are leaving parties, whether they are after work drinks parties, whether they are, I mean, whatever they are. You have seen photographs of him in rooms where people are not socially distanced and are drinking quite large amounts of booze. You also know that even more raucous gatherings unfolded in the building that is both his home and his office. So the architecture of Downing Street is not like the TARDIS in Doctor Who. It is not possible to stand in one corner of it and be completely unaware of what is going on several light years away. If there is a party going on in the building where you live, then often, if not always, you're going to know about it. Especially if, for example, the music is loud, or the fridge is full, or the Downing Street guards are being required to wave through young party members, young members of government with suitcases full of alcohol that they've just bought from the local Tesco on Westminster Bridge. That, you know, that the evidence is all out there. So what you are going to be asked to believe is that Boris Johnson didn't realise that evidence was being broken in rooms where he was giving speeches, that guidance was being broken in rooms where he was giving speeches. There's no new evidence, so you're going to get a little bit of a claim that his director of communications told him that the guidance had been followed, but it's not going to back up his claim that it had been followed at all times. He's not going to be able to point to anything that exonerates him in that sense. So the defence, I think, will come down to this. I didn't realise guidance was being broken in rooms where I gave speeches to drunk colleagues. That's going to be his defence. As far as I can tell. I mean, frankly, who cares? Until we find out for sure whether I'm right or wrong. But looking at the available evidence, noting that he has produced nothing new, there's no sort of secret email saying, oh, just so you know, all guidance has been followed at all times. And if you say that in the House of Commons tomorrow, I will go to my grave swearing that you're telling the truth. No one's doing that for him. So you've seen the photos, possibly through, through teary eyes as you remember what you had to go through at the time, or you remember family members that you lost during the lockdown. You've seen the photos. You've seen him claim in the House of Commons that nobody broke the guidance at all times, or that he had been assured. It seems to me that the fundamental flaw in his defence is that he witnessed it himself. And that's the question that I've got for you. Has he got a leg to stand on? Can you see a way in which you can claim that you didn't realise guidance had been broken in a room in which you were giving a speech to non-socially distanced drunk colleagues? That's the bit that I can't get past, even with Johnson's history for claiming that black is white, for claiming that 350 million quid could go to the NHS, for claiming that Owen Paterson had been more sinned against than sinning, for claiming that proroguing Parliament in those circumstances would be lawful, for claiming that Dominic Cummings really did drive 60 miles to Barnard Castle and back on his wife's birthday because he was worried that his eyesight might be temporarily damaged. He really did. I mean, you name it, he lied about it. Can you imagine any circumstances whatsoever in which the Privileges Committee... Listen, the Daily Mail will back him, even if he comes out claiming that he's actually been, I don't know, a Dolly Parton tribute act for the last 30 years. The Daily Mail will believe in whatever he says, so will the Telegraph. Do you know anyone that will? He's going to have to stand there and he's going to have to say, I gave a speech at a party without realising it was a party. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Because I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. We've only got 15 minutes to answer it, so buzz in now, whatever you do. 0345 6060 973. I just can't let myself think that this is the end of the line for him. I can't relax into it. I just think he is so duplicitous, so dishonest, so deceitful, so depraved, so prepared to lie and lie and lie again, that I think I've lost faith in. I think I've lost a little bit of faith in our democracy's ability to contain somebody as vile as Boris Johnson. Have you? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. So there's two questions there, the one about the detail and the one about democracy. Have you lost faith in our democracy's ability to contain a politician as obviously rancid as Boris Johnson?